think he's a total spoofer. Why should be a spoofer? This is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from an offside position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well. Thanks very much. Well done.
Bye.
Unless he's breastfeeding, he should be all right.
You're listening to the Island Radar podcast. James French is back with me today. James, the question on everyone's lips, are we back?
World Cup 26, here we come. Book the flights to the US. I think that's the genuine narrative among fans in it.
It was a strange week coming into things. There was the debate of was it better to stay or go, and it would have been handy to pick up some wins on the board. But look, I think we've seen the quality of Bulgaria across the two games. 2-1 wins this week, coming from behind in both games. But look, we have to be honest, Bulgaria, we're not a great side, and they're struggling. They have their own struggles at the moment. They're probably a nation being ripped apart by a bit of internal politics. But it's not long ago that Ireland's made difficulties of these sides, and it looks like we're starting to be able to beat these sides that are worse than us, like we showed with Finland previously, which of course was our first, I think, come from behind win in 11 years or something, and now we've done it back to back again this week.
I know Dan McDonald, I think he said that we've went behind first in 7 of Heimir's 8 games, which is a worrying trend. But I mean, you're looking at the obviously the Finland away one, and then the two recent games against Bulgaria, like we've come back and went and won. So I think there is that. Kind of, I was thinking of just watching the first leg. There's a bit of maturity about us, how we play now away from home. Like, I know Troy Parrott kind of said, like, it's not panic stations that we go 1-0 down, which it kind of seemed like it was under Kenny. We'd start a game well, we can see a long shot as usual for some reason, and then kind of the team would fall to pieces. I think shock horror, a bit of experience, having most of the team playing, have 20 caps now, and looking at now, like we're a lot more mature in how we play against these teams, even if we do go down. I think a lot of that is down to experience at this level. Like the likes of Parrott, like 28 caps now, Jason Knight, like it definitely does help when these guys have played in so many international games.
Yeah, we'll probably get on to how about things aren't all rosy, but I think it is time to be positive, and we probably discuss some things that in our own group chat today about, like, when was the last time we were actually positive about something about this national team. It was a long time ago. When Heimir came in, it was quite negative. We had the whole stuff with who's really in charge. Was it John O'Shea or him? And it's looking back at it now, we could say he's been thrown into the deep end. I remember his first 2 games, was looking at the way we played the systems, and it's like, does anybody actually know what's going on here? But you see across those 2 legs there today, or this week more so, it looked like a side that's finally taken place. I think the system looked settled. We played 2 different formations across the 2 games, but they both were quite similar. I think we played 4-4-2 on Sunday's game in Dublin, and it was more like a 4-2-3-1 on the Thursday. But there's so much flexibility in it, and it looks like players that have roles and jobs to do, whereas starting out probably quite fairly under Heimir's start, where the players were kind of looked lost and stuff. So it's great to see the players are starting to look comfortable in the new system.
I think it then started more. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think it definitely did morph into like a 3-5-2 going forward, or 3 at the back, and then 4-4-2 in defence. Like, am I right about that? Kind of possession shape.
Yeah.
Which is
kind of like, because the wing backs are getting high.
It's kind of like the universal out of possession shape. Like, so it's kind of nice to see us kind of move into the modern world of tactics, like, and not just with Kenny having just kind of so strict to the 3-5-2, and it was just so easy to figure us out and come up with a game plan to absolutely nullify the system, which is what Greece did like twice.
Yeah, I think it's a testament though how comfortable things are starting to look. I think the first 30 minutes of this game is when we did go behind, but I think it just as the first half ended, I texted you and I was like, hold on a second, I know we're behind, but like we actually look like a football team here. And I thought the same at the first leg. We were playing so well when we conceded. I know that was early on in the game, but you mentioned before about the players having confidence. Like they clearly seems to be some understanding in what they're doing now, and what their roles is, and what they have to do, and maybe that's why they've got this confidence to be able to come in from behind and not necessarily worry if they're one goal down, because there's a plan, you know.
Well, there's definitely that air, like as I was saying, there's definitely that air of maturity around the law of like team now with regards to going down a goal. Like even just thinking back to the Stephen Kenny reign. I know I keep going back to Stephen Kenny at the minute, but I remember the Azerbaijan game at home, and I think first half an hour we started really well. Like they score an absolute worldie as usual with Ireland playing kind of international minnows. It always seems that they happened in the last couple of years, and then we kind of just fell apart. I think we eventually drew the game 1-1, Shane Duffy header laid on, but the kind of start we had, we just completely diminished just after we conceded, and I think it was kind of just showed our bit of naivety at that level. Guys feeling the pressure a bit, obviously. With so much of people's hopes on the likes of Idah, Parrott, kind of really, really young guys at the time with 2021. It was kind of natural for them to feel that pressure and probably not kind of rise to it. So I think, as I was saying, like it's definitely a positive that we do seem comfortable now to kind of comfortable at this level. Like I know you said, we look like a football team, which we haven't really for a couple of years. There's definitely still some faults, some flaws in the side, particularly the second half performance. With regards to like us keeping the ball and stuff, we kind of lost control, which I'm sure we'll kind of come to.
Yeah, like you said about the aim has been to try and look like a competent side, and that's what we are positive about. You know, we're not trying to say that we're going to win the World Cup, or maybe we'll see after the friendlies and the qualifying games coming up soon. But like across the two games, I thought both fullbacks were excellent. I think Robbie Brady's continued to be excellent under Heimir, like in his reign.
Rolling back the years.
Yeah, the midfield looked a bit improved, but you know there's still issues there. I wasn't really impressed with those, but I liked a lot what we were seeing in wide areas in the first leg. You know, you got the likes of Ryan Manning coming in. I thought he did quite well. Mikey Johnson, there's clearly a plan with him playing him on his stronger foot rather than an inside forward. You know, stretching the pitch, getting crosses into the box, and then obviously, you know, Ferguson gets his goal, which is much needed. It was a fantastic goal, and one that wasn't easy at all. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But obviously, then the two main players I think we have to talk about is Finn Azaz and Troy Parrott. You know, I think we'll start on Finn. He's got 10 goals and 11 assists for Middlesbrough this season in Championship. He wins man of the match in the first game. I think that was his 7th cap. His 8-1 coming in the second leg. But just how important do you think Azaz has to be to this side going forward?
Yeah, I think based on the two games, like he was kind of our most creative player alongside Troy Parrott. You look at kind of his stats-wise in the championship, like I think he's 10 goals and 10 plus assists. Like he's racking up ridiculous numbers. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a move. Like if he continues those numbers up for the rest of the season in the summer. Like so I think it's very difficult to see future games without us starting Finn Azaz. He just kind of seems to be kind of now integral to how we play. Operating in the 10, operating in the half spaces. He's just a brilliant technical player. Like I remember seeing him for the first time. I think it was the 21s, not the last campaign, but the previous campaign. They were back by Israel in the playoffs. I think it was the second leg. He came in and started the game, having not played at all. For the whole of that under 21 campaign, just came out of nowhere. I don't know who he was. I was just watching him. I was looking at this guy, and he was just creating like this creativity monster. Like in kind of the final third for us, he was so impressive. In that away leg to Israel. Like, and since then, he's kind of really kind of been on upward trajectory club level, and obviously now we're kind of starting to see him become comfortable at international level. After I think you said 7 caps, so I think it's definitely a position we've needed someone to be in. Like really, really consistent and impressive form in for a while. And as I said, like it seems very unlikely that we'll see an Ireland side without him starting in the future if he is available. I think that in general the creativity options, like I know Andrew Moore hasn't been great of late for Stoke. He's kind of dropped out of the team, but you have him on the bench as well if we're kind of needing that bit of creativity in the 10. So I think, as I said, just kind of options, attacking options, is we just seem to have just them in abundance compared to what we were, which is obviously great to see.
He just honestly, like as a player, I think he just really, really excites me. And Evan Dunphy doesn't seem to be a fan. I think I seen him calling him overrated in the media today or the other day, which is I thought was a bit of a strange reaction after
Oh man yells at Cloud like
man of the match performance, and arguably probably should have won it again against Bulgaria. But look, that's not important. But yeah, no, I was very, very impressed with Azaz. And I think like there's a lot of people on Twitter, probably myself included, being like, he's a new Wes or Houlihan, like he's a new Houlihan. And look, I'd love to say like it's a lazy comparison or whatever, but the truth being said, like have we actually had anyone with that kind of creative ability that he's had since Houlihan's hung up the boots? Like there's no player that really springs to mind for me. Like I mean, in both games, even if he wasn't directly involved, and he did score in the first leg, but he was just taking the ball over and making things happen, progressing the ball forward. First game he plays as number 10. The second game, Heimir wants to get Ferguson in. He puts him at left wing. I mean, he seems to really understand Heimer's system because there's that flexibility where Brady comes up on the left-hand side and is almost a winger at some stages, and then you see Azaz popping up in the half spaces almost as a number 10, even though he's starting out as a left winger. He's clearly somebody that's very, very important to this side already, even only 7 or 8 caps into his Ireland career. He's only had 3 starts maybe so far, 3 or 4 starts. And, Heimer's talked about him before in the media. There was the thing as well where he invited like journalists over to FAI headquarters, showing them his scouting database a few weeks ago. And the player focus was Finn Azaz. So it seems to be not only the Republic of Ireland supporters really falling in love with Finn Azaz, but I think he might be a bit of a teacher's pet already for Heimir. Of course, it wasn't only Finn Azaz, who kind of made a name for himself this week. Troy Parrott might be 28 caps into his Ireland campaign, but I suppose this week feels like it really was the week that he arrived for Ireland. He looks every bit of intelligent player. He looks every bit of if you pointed to a player that in those legs that, there's a player that's been playing European football and playing quite well, I think he'd be pointing at Troy Parrott. It's probably been his best pair of games in Ireland, sure.
Yeah, I think there's since Troy's come in, like he obviously had the winner against Hungary. I think it was that last year, was it? Under O'Shea for the couple of friendlies. The Lithuania game where he got the winner as well. There's always kind of been moments with Troy, like the talent is obviously there, but I think he hasn't really looked too comfortable on the international level in his 20 or so games so far. But I think now we're kind of really starting to see a really kind of mature Troy Parrott who is like undergone like a really undergone a lot of development over the last couple of years. Obviously playing
confident. You could see it in his performance. For me, I thought he looked very sheepish before in his Ireland performances, and he was an Irish striker. There's a lot of pressure put on him. Of course, he was going to be like that, because we were crying out for a striker for so long. In some ways, we still already are. You see the pressure that we put on Evan Ferguson. We're international and first club form, but I think it's going out into Netherlands in the league now that he's the second highest scorer. Does he have 12, 13, 14 goals or something like that in the league this season? And it shocked me as someone who's never had that one game in an Ireland shirt that he's like, I've arrived, that he comes into that first leg and he looked like the man, and he carried it to the second leg.
I think as well, like it's like he hasn't scored in 6 games for Alkmaar like recently, and he still has that kind of level of confidence. So it just shows how he's developed over the last year. Maybe a bit of mental fortitude, a bit of mental strength to kind of have that confidence, not get too high, not get too low. Like, it's as you were saying, confidence. Like, it's not really surprising that Parrott and Idah are like obviously off the kind of second leg performing really well for us, scoring, and it's kind of not surprising that's kind of coincided with them having their best individual seasons to date. Like it's, as you said, it's all about confidence. Like they've both had really good moves, um, outside of kind of the relentless like intensity of the English Championship, which is a very difficult environment to have these young guys grow and develop. Like, and I think you've kind of see two guys who've really benefited from obviously kind of leaving that kind of really, really intense environment and getting away a bit from kind of the Irish media and kind of Irish fans. Like I know Celtic obviously is kind of still in Scottish football, still in the UK, like, but even then, like, it's the coverage compared to the Premier League in Ireland is night and day. Like that kind of insane pressure just isn't really on them as it was, and I think you can see that in how they're playing for us, and especially Idah, who, like you said, was really impressive off the bench.
Yeah, and like we're still on Parrott here. Like, you know, we have this week we were talking about that it might be his best week in an Ireland shirt. He doesn't even score. You know, to be fair, I don't think I was familiar that his all round game was as good as that. You know, he was just constantly making things to happen. And to be honest, I think I'd be surprised from going forward here now. Like, I know Idah was a bit concerned with his playing time. Maybe something we'll get into a bit later as well. But I'd be surprised if Troy isn't one of the first names on the team sheet, or especially when you're picking your attacking options. I mean, it's becoming somewhere we're weirdly kind of well stocked for options these days. We still to remember that Sami Smojic is out injured, Chiog Ben is out injured as well, so they're still to come back into the squad. But I think Troy's made his case in the squad, and he's shown that he can either lead the line by himself like he did on Thursday, or he can play as part of it too. So yeah, very good signs there.
Well, I think his hold the play is the one part of his game that has gone to like a new level. Like you see it kind of, he's obviously playing in the Europa League with Alkmaar. Like he's going to these venues like Bilbao, Roma, and he's at Alkmaar obviously quite a expansive side. But when they go in Europa League away from home, they're obviously going to have to be a bit more conservative, and Troy's probably going to have to kind of turn up in terms of his hold the play. And I think you kind of see that in especially in the first leg, and how comfortable he was. Just kind of was a moment there, like when he just took it down so well and switched out to the left hand side just so comfortably. Like I think his hold the play now has just kind of gone to a new level. Like he's just seems kind of just very used to kind of having to do that role.
That's right. It feels about right, the right time to talk about the Evan Ferguson goal now as well. I think anyone that probably went to the Aviva for the game or was watching the game, you know, if you had to pick somebody to score, it would have been Evan Ferguson, or that you would like to score, because I think we're all hoping for kind of a comeback of form on his part. To be honest, I thought he started the game well. I thought he looked a lot more energetic than he has done in a long time, but he kind of quickly faded. You know, he started to look a bit more like a player who hasn't got a whole lot of football this season. I thought he looked bright as well when he came on Thursday in Plovdiv, but a few minutes before his goal, he misses a chance where Parrott puts him in after nicking the ball from the defender. He just looked so slow, looked so lack of confidence. I kind of seen that chance and I was like, oh, this is not going to work out for him like today. And then, was it 5 or 10 minutes later? I mean, he's hardly scored many goals better than that. Picks the ball up near the halfway line, dribbles a bit, lays it off into Azaz. Azaz picks the perfect pass and just smashed it into net. You know, it was, you talk about sometimes players when they lack the confidence that Ferguson needs, and you kind of just need the ball to go in off him, off his shin, off like any part of the body, just a goal. That was not the case. You know, it was a fantastic goal by him, one that he had to do all the work for, and he didn't look like an unconfident player when he scored that goal.
It's definitely nice to see Bowl and playing up front like together. I don't know, what did you kind of think how they kind of linked up together? Do you think it kind of worked well? Do you think it maybe is a future partnership?
Maybe in a time, I thought it was a bit rusty. I thought they're kind of both looking to do the same thing, and that not one, like they would both drop instead of one dropping and one going. I think if, you talk about Parrott's hold up play, and this is probably a bit of a weird point to make after I said he picked up the ball from such deep position to score his goal, but I've always thought that Ferguson struggled with his hold up play, and I still does, and I think that's why he became out of favour in Brighton. when you've got players like Danny Welbeck who are so good at doing that kind of thing. Was his hold up play? He's been quite poor. So
I think all three of our strikers, though, they just love dropping deep to pick up the ball. Like, even Idah for Celtic.
I'd say the Ferguson are good in it though. I don't think it's
I
in.
know. I think it's weird though that they all tend to do it. Like, even for Celtic, Idah gets so much flack from fans because he just is always dropping deep into the wide areas for no reason. Like, when his main strength is either getting in behind or it's just ability to finish in the box, which is really good. Like,
Look at what we said. We have options like the other game we played with number 10, so I can see it being switched around a bit. And some games worked well. It worked a lot better in the second half. I thought both Parrott and Ferguson were excellent in the second half. Now Parrott kind of went off. It looked like a bit of a knock. So I think maybe down the line it could work. They haven't played an awful lot that time together. I think was it Finland the other time they played up front together. I thought it looked a lot better than it did against Finland, or it might have been Greece. I don't know. Maybe a few more games playing together, it could be something that really works. Because
I think that we definitely want to be running in behind though. Like, I think, as you said, we can't have two kind of dropping back and not having that threat to kind of go over the top. Like, I think one thing about Idah, wanting to have someone with his running power off the bench is just a really, really good asset. Like,
I think it's more of an understanding thing though than like what they want to do. I think it's just, it's not like Premier League football. You see many strike partnerships these days. So maybe it's just something that, again, we've seen the evolution of this system that players are starting to get more and more understanding. Maybe it's just something down the line that they, start to understand just a bit more. But I think I'd like to talk about is that West Ham move for Ferguson. Look, I don't want to be I told you so in it, but I did have a bad feeling about that loan move, and it hasn't worked out great so far. He hasn't really got a kick of the ball, and West Ham aren't exactly full of strikers options. Do you think this could have any bearing on the minutes that he gets for West Ham going forward? I suppose what can you expect for Ferguson's rest of his campaign?
well, I think you'd hope that Graham Potter has obviously seen his performance against like the second leg against Bulgaria, seen him score, and hopefully he'll go back to West Ham with that kind of confidence, the key word, as we kind of said earlier, that confidence to really kick on and try and kind of get a few starts before the end of the season, because like the loan move so far has been absolutely catastrophic, like in terms of what was kind of wanted out of it. And when you look at West Ham, team kind of looking for solutions to their own issues in their team, like, and known after number 9, and you've one of the so-called best prospects in the Premier League striker-wise under 21, and you're not using them, like, so there has to be kind of something underneath the surface there, whether it's training, whether it's attitude-wise, like, I don't really know, but hopefully going back to West Ham, he can really have the bit between his teeth and kick on, because heading into the kind of the June period, the dream would be for Parrott obviously to have a great end of the season, for Ferguson and to do the same, and obviously Idah, but in particular Ferguson and Parrott to be able to, again against Luxembourg, Senegal, play kind of two up top and really kind of try to develop that partnership, because they're just two very, very smart players, two very clever players, and if you have both of them in goal scoring form, I think it's just going to be a real asset for us going forward. And I think, as I said at the time, I really wanted Ferguson to go abroad. I think, like, if the most clear example of someone doing so is Troy Parrott, and he's in the national team with you. Like, I don't understand why maybe him or his boarders wouldn't look at that and just say maybe it's best for 6 months to go to France, to go to Germany, to go to wherever. And maybe the offers weren't there. Obviously, we don't know what's going on in the background, but I just would have liked to have seen him go somewhere else, outside the Premier League bubble, because it's just every game he doesn't score, just the pressure mounts and mounts, like, and no matter how confident you are as a young player, it definitely takes its toll, and you can see that in his performances over the 2 legs. Like the first leg, obviously very bright, very kind of showed moments of quality in terms of like a few good touches when he came on. He kind of really took on the Bulgarian defence, like, but then you just see his confidence wise, he's losing the ball a bit, and then obviously in the second leg, like, he's missed chances and stuff, like, so it's just all about confidence, and kind of hopefully Potter will kind of look at that scoring obviously in the second leg, and he can really kick on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I suppose there's one thing as well that we were mentioning with Troy, that his form and I suppose Azaz is slightly fighting for his position too, because if he decides to play for a number 10, or with a number 10 instead of 2 strikers, and that means there's less spaces for Ferguson in the team. There's one thing he can't take for granted, and that is a guaranteed spot in this Ireland team. And obviously, Idah came on and scored in this game. You know, he was very open in the media about we had a conversation with Heimir about his lack of football for the Ireland squad, or specifically not getting a single minute on Thursday. Look, Idah hasn't, obviously you could be more in the know of being a Celtic fan yourself, but his goal scoring return is pretty good this year, despite not playing every game for Celtic. I thought he was actually brilliant when he came on. He looked like a player with a point to prove, and that's what you want. You know, when you want somebody to close out a game. He had the running power. He was constantly making runs in behind. He was, you know, a bit of a thorn in let's be honest, what was not a great Bulgarian defense. Himself and Mark Sykes combined well once he came on. Maybe he does also have a point to prove to Heimir that, you know, there's competition to be had, and he could be one of the names on the starting sheet as well.
He's not first choice at Celtic. Like, since Kyogo left, it was kind of expected that he'd kind of take a spot and take that number 1 position, and he said that in interviews, like, that's what he wanted to do, that's what he felt he was capable of doing, and he just hasn't really done it. Like, Liza Maida is starting there over him, and he just kind of hasn't really impressed in the games he has played, really. So it's obviously nice to see him kind of pick up a goal and look really, really good when he came on. Going forward, as I said, it's just all about all three of them playing and scoring.
I don't know what it's like. It's like he looked quicker than he. I don't know. Like it's like it's almost like he had so much of a point to prove that. I suppose maybe it was the game state as well that there was so many balls going in behind. But it was just he was running onto the end of every.
You don't have the pretty high level speed though. Like, for a guy his size, especially against Bulgaria, like their defense was very slow. Like, and he game as well, how late on it was.
He was just very, very determined to do something once he came off the bench, which I suppose is probably a sign of good coaching from Heimir, really, to be able to light that fire under him. He said that they had that conversation. He wasn't too happy, but, you know, he gets his minutes, gets his goals, and he puts a bit of pressure on. He kind of shushed the crowd or the bench.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was shushed.
I think it was a general kind of like shush the like his haters, kind of inverted commas, kind of.
Okay, if you don't know at Celtic games, because he gets quite a lot of flack online. You know how Celtic fans are, like obviously a big club, like it's quite unforgiving. Like, when he does have a bad game, he does get quite a lot of flack. So maybe it's in response to that, but it doesn't really make sense.
It looked
on Ireland, I'm sure he was doing it. I'll be like, maybe when you saw him
shushing, it looked a bit like he was shushing towards the Ireland bench, which led people be like, "Oh, is he having a falling out with Heimir?" It was a bit strange. I don't.
He was laughing after all. I think I see the admin put up like guess what they were saying or something.
Yeah. But no, I think it was more of a general thing. But I suppose that's what we want to see, right? We want to see a bit of fight in the players. You know, it's like we're picking up a lot of positive signs from the game, but like squad depth at the moment is something I think we have in abundance. Once these players are becoming more and more comfortable with the system, you know, the team just gets stronger and stronger. You know, as well to be mentioned that Jacob Ryan made his full debut in this game, which seems a bit hard to believe because he's been around for a few camps now. But yeah, I thought it was quietly impressive. And then Jimmy John made his full debut as well. Rocco Valla got some minutes as well, which I imagine we're going to see more of once we get into the international friendlies. There's options here. Ogbene is to come back from injury. Obviously, he was one of our most important players for the last few years. Sami Smojic was one of the better players, and he's to come back from injury probably not for another while anyways, but he's to come back into the squad as well. That's Abasala as well. Yeah. There's a lot of players to come back in who didn't feel missed too much in these games, but I tell you what, once they come back in, it's going to be some serious competition for places and maybe more impact from the bench. Like Heimir uses all his subs a lot. You know, I think as well, it was Mark Sykes' best cameo in an Ireland shirt coming on the other day. I've never really understood his role for Ireland.
It's been a bit of a pit-part player for Ireland, but like he's having quietly a good season for Bristol. Like, to be fair, and he's literally playing at that exact position for Bristol on that kind of right wing back / right wing role. Like, so he's pretty perfect for the kind of system.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think, I said about Robbie Brady earlier. He's the oldest player in the team at the moment at 33 years of age. But like we were talking about this left back problem for a while. Ryan Manning came in as well. I thought he looked quite good, but Robbie Brady's been excellent for Ireland. I think there was an article written in extra.e. I got it now off the top of my head, but and it was a good read today. But something about the system really, really suits our wing backs. I think Matt Doherty looks much improved. I think when Manning came in, he did well. Brady's been one of our best players, but from set pieces. Jacob Ryan almost scored 1 or 2 headers, and just being able to get up the pitch, get wide, put deep crosses into the box. Whatever it is we're doing with the system, it's really getting the most of our fullbacks at the moment. As well. Doherty gets the goal on Thursday. He's someone that was kind of cast away from the side, and he's come back a lot better. And I think it probably coincides with his form for Wolves. He's been playing almost every single game since December, where previously he didn't really get a kick all season. So, yeah, I've
It's kind of coincided with me calling him the laziest professional footballer of all time. 10 minutes before he scored.
Well, there was only a few podcasts before where I said that I don't think he'll be capped for Ireland again, and he made his 50th appearance, and I thought across from both games, I thought he was pretty good.
Let the praise be as loud as the criticism.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hold the hands up. As well, John O'Shea, somebody we criticise a lot, as a lot of people have. He was the one who brought Robbie Brady back into the fold. It wouldn't have been outlandish to say that his Ireland career was finished, but Robbie Brady was brought back in O'Shea's first camp, and it's been probably one of Ireland's best performers since. So look, it's not a long-term solution to what's probably going to be an issue down.
I was going to say, I think long-term Ryan Manning you would hope that he will now kind of take that spot. He kind of keeps featuring for Southampton in the Premier League. It's very much in and out with him, so I don't really know.
No, he wasn't in the squad to begin with, but I imagine going forward he's going to.
Very strange.
I imagine going forward he will be, considering he featured in both games, and I think he impressed.
He was very impressive in the first leg, playing as a just kind of, even in attacking areas, he seemed very, very comfortable, and it's kind of nice to see.
And as Heimir
playing that way role.
Heimir's first press conference, didn't he talk about wanting bastards in the side? I think Ryan Manning was a bit of one of that in the first game. He was just trying to get his marker sent off. I think he won about it felt like
that was the amount of foul Bulgaria were committing. I've never seen a match with so many, and the opposition having so many fouls.
It was a strange second half of that game. But yeah, I suppose it's not at all plain sailing for the side. I mean, there still looms the midfield issue. I think they were better than they were in previous games, obviously playing weaker opposition. But I think in both games, Cullen and Knight really faded and showed. Ireland have a pretty big midfield issue at the moment. That if Ireland are to do well in World Cup qualifying, it's probably not going to be midfield that games are won in.
Yeah, I think in particular with the second leg, I think they had Bulgaria at 60% of the ball or something in the second leg. For an inferior side, supposedly quality wise, to do that, especially when we were chasing the game, trying to turn it around is pretty worrying. I think just kind of size wise, athleticism wise, Cullen and Knight Cullen in particular, I think Knight kind of passes him in terms of speed and stuff, but Cullen he's just far too slow, far too small, and far too weak kind of to be in that number 6 position. In particular for us, when he doesn't have that, he's not unbelievable technically. I think it's definitely a position we need to kind of shake things up in. The hope probably would have been that John Joe Patrick Finn would have came in. Big guy, 6'3", big physical.
Yeah,
but it's just as much as
as much as we had a bit of a laugh and a joke with the last show's podcast, or the last show's show title or whatever we call it, but calling him the Messiah or whatever. Look, he wasn't picked for that squad. You have to think there's maybe a reason for it, and even if he comes in, he's not going to fix all of Ireland's problems. He might not even fix any of them. It is a worry
either, which was a bit odd. I'd say it might be a reason he wants to stay in. this club or whatever. There must be some other reason, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I suppose you say Bosa Noel's probably another option. His football's been a bit start this season, obviously with
He
injuries.
was injured, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just look, it's hard to be successful without a good midfield. I think as we'll probably come into most of our games as underdogs, we probably can get it done by playing a counter-attacking football, relying on the wings, and it's probably why Heimir relies on his wings so much. In Thursday's games, he played 2 right footers on the right side, 2 left footers on the left side. The aim of the game is clearly stretch the pitch, keep the ball away from the midfield as much as you can, and utilize the wide areas. There's been a lot of talk about moving Nathan Collins into number 6, but I think we should probably have a rethink about that after this week's performances from him. Collins is a bit of a mystery for me. I think he's one of the most minutes in Europe this season. He's played every single game for Brentford, almost every single minute, but he doesn't look settled for Ireland for me.
He's very erratic.
Very erratic. He was very poor in possession across both games, and I think maybe it's because to give him the benefit of the doubt, he hasn't really been given a solid centre half partner, not an ability, but as I mean, as the centre halves have changed. He's played with Arnold Bamadelli, he's played with Darragh O'Shea, who he's probably played the most minutes with, and to be fair, did nothing to warrant being dropped for the Bulgaria game. But I think, or the second leg more so. But I think Heimir just wanted to give Jacob O'Brien a debut at centre half, and then again he's played with O'Brien. He's also played with Scales. There's never been like one centre half that he knows he's going to play beside. So maybe that's part of the reason. But we say this in Ireland, are always conceding against the run of play. Was it 7 of our last 8 games or something that we've conceded first? Centre back it's becoming an issue where it really shouldn't be one.
Yeah, even with the Collins situation we talked about, I think last podcast we were saying about, I was saying I think it's partly because of how kind of detailed and how organised Brentford are in terms of their setup, obviously playing in the 3-back as well. I think it's just a bit kind of, you coming into the Ireland side, it's a bit less structured, a small bit less detailed in terms of personnel, like kind of familiarity as well, like in terms of who is he playing with every week, and he comes into Ireland camps and it's just, especially his performance just seem erratic, and he looks like he lacks confidence, which is very strange for a guy who probably has been one of the best performers in the Premier League this season. Like he's been really, really, really good. So it's, I think I'd probably disagree with you on the number 6 question, because I don't know, you're talking about him making mistakes and stuff, but like Bossa Noel was very similar for Ireland and for the games I watched him for the Celtic B team as well at centre half. Like he was very, very prone to a mistake, and then kind of you moved him into midfield, up the field, up the pitch a bit, and he just kind of thrived. I'm not saying we're going to make Nathan Collins number 8, but I think if you do kind of have him as that number 6 at times, when it kind of, the game kind of needs it, I think it definitely is an option for us, in particular with kind of how just threadbare our midfield options are. Like if you look at out with Cullen and Nye, who's going to come in there, it's Jason Lumley, Connor Coventry, like there. I don't know, are they going to add much more, add anything different to kind of the team? I'd really doubt that. So as well, you were saying about Patrick Flynn, like it's unsure whether, like if he will be in the next squad, will he make the difference? We don't know. Like, so I think having Collins in your back pocket as a number 6 is definitely an option, that kind of hopefully can be used at times in the coming months when it is appropriate, opposition wise.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, actually, that first half against England was when he played as kind of a number 6, or it was strange. It was probably the best way to do it, whereas sometimes he was kind of like a third centre half, and sometimes he was a number 6. I've already said that Heimir likes to be flexible with his formation, and I think it's quite genius from him, because we've got so many players, like I said, like Azaz, who be like a number 10 but has to play left wing, that are slightly playing out of position. So to have that flexibility, allows for players to kind of run between roles that they like. But I really liked what I seen in the first half against England as that number 6. I don't know how good it'll be going forward. For me, I just never like the conversation about putting somebody in a position that they never really played in their career in international football. Doesn't really make sense to me. But again, I was proved wrong. I'd say about only 45 minutes against England. But look, I suppose I'm kind of getting off track there. I don't know how Ireland are going to stop conceding goals against the run of play. I think maybe when there becomes even more understanding, we've got friendlies coming up. The people know their roles a bit more. People become more comfortable. The centre halves become more comfortable with who they play with. I thought Jacob Ryan was quite, fine, all right. Like, he didn't do anything wrong for me. So maybe that could become a partnership. Maybe that there's more understanding between the two centre halves and it eliminates a lot of these mistakes. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the goals we are conceding there's not much of a chance in one that we kind of turn into a bigger chance. And if we want to have any hope of getting to America next year, I suppose it's something we need to get rid of.
Yeah, well, I think we're definitely, like I think Heimir was saying about wanting to kind of make us really difficult to play against. Like, we're very, very easy to play against at the minute. Talking about going back to basics defensively wise, like as we said earlier, we've conceded first in 7 of our last 8 games. I'm not trying to be negative, like those are just kind of the facts, and there is obviously reasoning for why we are conceding early in games. Is it mental weakness? I don't know, because we're coming back then, so I think you could kind of counteract that point by saying we're mentally stronger for coming back from kind of losing positions. Or is it maybe a tactical thing, familiarity? Like, we don't know. Like, all we can hope is that in the coming kind of months in the 2 friendlies and then heading into Hungary, that this trend kind of stops happening. That's pretty much it.
What I would say though is Heimer's already turned 2 pretty major trends around. With the winning games away. It's something we haven't done an awful lot of, and we've done it against Finland, and we've done it against Bulgaria there. So 2 away games coming recently, and then obviously the wins from behind. We've been doing that a lot recently. So we said the team is looking more confident. It's probably not a bad thing to have issues that we can look at and be like, these can be fixed and we can work towards it, because as we've already said, there's been stuff that we have worked towards already. If you look at the first game from Heimer's reign to now, it looks a completely different story. As I said, we talked about at length there that the attackers look more confident, the fullbacks look like way more confident as well. Like, the players know what to do when they go behind. They don't put their heads down as much. So maybe this is the next thing they're going to work towards, and maybe it's something that they can fix. But yeah, as I suppose to say that we are very positive. I think I definitely am after the round of games. We got friendlies coming up, and then we've got the qualifiers coming up I think, is it October or September? I think it starts.
First of September,
yeah. The first game is at Hungary, or it's in Dublin to Hungary. We will be also playing against Armenia and Portugal in our group. Those Portugal games are coming in October and November, and then the final game is in Hungary. We also have friendlies against Senegal and Luxembourg coming up this summer. Just kind of after all that, James, I suppose, like, your state of play, just how are you feeling really about everything going on? How do you feel about after those performances? How do you feel just with Heimir, Halgrimsson, and the direction the squad is going?
Yeah, I think obviously, genuinely, probably the most positive week we've had in Irish football for a number of years, as you've said. It's obviously winning 2 games in a row for since 2019. It's a nice fact, but I think the positivity, from my point of view, kind of more stems from the fact that our squad just seems to be a lot stronger. It seems to have progressed now to a point where we've genuine competition for places, and there just kind of seems to be just a lot more options, a lot more flexibility. And I think those things we just didn't really have under Kenny. I think for how Kenny wanted to play, didn't really have the players to do so. And I think Heimer's really benefiting from kind of those young guys that he threw in that are now 30, 20 cap internationals, and that they can kind of really impact the international game and not really come under that pressure, as I said earlier. In terms of Heimir, I think it's obviously, we have to admit Bulgaria are a very poor side, but the manner of how we won both games pretty convincingly XG wise, we were like by far the better team in games gone by against kind of similarly standard teams like League C sides, the likes of Luxembourg, the likes of Armenia, we've fallen time and time again against them. So it's definitely refreshing to see that there is a quality gap there, and we obviously will kind of put ourselves above them in terms of quality on paper anyway, but to see it on the pitch is definitely reassuring that we do look a far better team than the likes of than Bulgaria, and kind of above that League C standard. I think the biggest question will be if we're able to hurt kind of the next tier of teams, so the better the better kind of Nations League Group B sides, to categorize them, like the likes of obviously Hungary. We're going to have to be in the qualifiers. Are we?
They got battered in their Nations League.
I'd seen that.
Is it playoff or whatever it was? Yeah, they got.
Yeah,
I think Armenia suffered a very heavy defeat as well.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of the big question, whether we are able to kind of impact the game against that quality opposition. The hope would be, as you said, that the likes of Hungary and Armenia are hopefully on a bit of a downward spiral after like 2 shocking results, both of them. I think 6-1 and 7-1 or something ridiculous. You'd hope that because both their national teams, I think Armenia have kind of been slowly spiraling up the last couple of years. Obviously had that very good result against us, and then Hungary have been like one so consistent over like the last 5-6 years. Like they've been remarkably good.
Shocking in the Euros though. They
further than all, I'm saying though, they looked remarkably good for their level of quality, for their talent. Like they shouldn't really be where they are. Do you know what I mean? So you'd hope that hopefully they're kind of on a downward spiral and we can really catch them in September. As kind of the hope is we're now on this kind of linear path up, and hopefully this isn't just another false dawn, like there was under the Kenny era. But I would kind of
we've been there before.
Any hope. I will kind of disagree with notions that it is a false dawn, just based on the fact that the squad does look a lot stronger, and that's kind of the main source of my optimism, rather than just getting too high when we win. Like it's more around the general feel of the squad, and obviously with the kind of the flexibility of Heimer's setup as well, which is something we haven't had for a number of years.
And on that, I suppose it's exciting that we did all this. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of Rocco Vada. We haven't seen Andrew Moore an awful lot at this level. We said we've got, I think there's still so much more to be seen from Sami Spodic in an Ireland shirt, even though he has been quietly impressive in his game so far. He said there could be the likes of some new midfielders coming in. I think these friendlies are going to be super important for really just hammering home the Ireland's style of bringing up some of those new players. Now, I think it's going to be very important that we don't go into these friendlies bringing 6-7 new players into the squad. We should really come in with a similar squad that we played with Bulgaria, and maybe try and get Vada some more minutes or something like that.
Well, yeah, the likes of Vada
more
today, you see, hopefully given opportunities, given starts in both of those games. I'm keeping the same squad, but obviously they are friendlies in the day. Like you've minimum amount of games to prepare for the qualifiers in September. You want to really test out the squad and see.
We're getting more comfortable with the system, so give it a chance to even to build on that. And then there's like I said, like Azaz hasn't had many games and he looked very comfortable. To say give him 2 more games, he'd look even, I suppose, better in that system. And I think it's going to be a very important few months. I think it's great that we have this positivity then, taking us through to June or whenever those friendlies are, because it's very easy, I suppose, probably for the players to be down on themselves after, playing Greece. And, I think I still have nightmares about how good we made Greece look across those 2 games and the other Nations League games. So it's good to have a few months and to be positive. I suppose it'll probably do the players a world of good.
Yeah, overall, kind of confident and looking forward to the qualifiers in September. Definitely after seeing Hungary and Armenia both get destroyed, definitely adds to the confidence a bit. But hopefully now it's kind of really kicks on with the Heimir reign, and this is
Keep looking your flights
on to the US or to Hungary.
Oh yeah, to the US, of course. They've been queues outside the credit union. I quote you on that. Yeah. Okay. So I suppose that's probably about all we have time for. It's been a very, very positive week. It has to be said. Probably the most positive week in some time for Irish football. Before we go, James, I'll just ask, do you have any final thoughts for us before we sign off here?
World Cup 2026 inbound. That's my only thought at the minute. Getting my flights, getting my credit union loan, and getting on the plane in a year's time.
Great. And you'll refund anyone who books flights from listening to this, will you, if we don't make it, is it? Yeah, that's out. Come on.
Yeah.
Good lad, James. All right. Thank you, guys, for listening to the Ireland Radar podcast. I kind of hope that you're all as excited about this Ireland side going forward as I am now, and maybe prepared to be hurt once again. But yeah, leave you there, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.